Barely. All right, welcome this morning. It's beautiful and frozen outside. I don't know how cold it was in other areas, but when I got in my car, it said 2 degrees, and all I wanted to do was crawl back into the house and get underneath the heated blanket, but I didn't. We came here, and we're going to look at some assignments here real quickly. So let me download this so we can make it big enough to see. All right, so we're going to figure out how to start using an input so that we can get that idea of a user telling us what to do. So we're going to be able to input names. We're going to be able to input all kinds of things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start out with our idle. So I'm going to pop that up, and I'm going to hit File New. New file. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in our comments, and we're going to put in what this assignment is. So in this case, this one should be Unit 1, Module 1, Activity 16, right? Okay. So I'm also going to put my name in there just so I know who it is. So we talked a lot about, you guys have seen things about plagiarism. I will give you the silliest example of plagiarism I ever saw in this class. I had a student submit work that they had copied from apparently their roommate. They were taking this class together. And he had decided to borrow his friend's work, didn't even change the comment tag and had the other person's name in it still. So that's one of the ways we can catch cheating, but hopefully that's not how we end up doing it. All right. So I'm going to move the run window out of my way here real quick. I think. Do what? 1.6. We're going to skip 1. We're skipping 1.5 to let you guys do that. That one's doing some string art and such, and it's kind of fun, but that one's pretty easy to follow along with. I'm going to make it go. All right. And you guys are able to see that, or I need to make it any bigger? Is that good? Okay. All right. So this program we're going to talk about using input and other pieces. So when I come in here, I'm going to start out with my first steps. 1, 2, okay. All right. So the code, write the code to assign input to variables for student age, student GPA, and student name. And we shortcutted those, or they did here, to STAge, STGPA, STName. I'm probably going to keep them a little longer. And what I'm also going to do is I tend to do this at the beginning. If I know what some of the variables are, I'm going to actually set them up and put them in as a null or whatever type of variable it is and set it equal to 0 or equal to null. So the first variable I'm going to see here is student age. So I'm going to say student age using camel casing, and I'm going to set it equal to, now, to 0. We know that that one is going to be numeric. I'm going to have student GPA, and I'm going to also set that equal to 0. That way when we use these, I just double check that there's nothing else hiding around that might be in there. It's probably overkill, but that's my brain sometimes does it. And then we're going to have student name. And we're going to do that one, but instead of putting a 0 in, because we really are doing that as a string, I'm going to put 2 quotes. So it's just empty, but we've got that information there. All right. So what we need to do on 3 then, it says, write the code to assign input to variables for student age, student GPA, and student name. So I've already put them in there. So now we need to do this really quickly. So we're going to use this input function that we have. So I might even put up here, just so I know that I'm declaring variables and garbage collection. Alright, so down here I'm going to getting input. So when I do this then, when I do this now, I say, all right, I have a variable, and I want to get some information about the student. And so the different things I'm going to get, student age, student GPA. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to say student age is now going to be equal to input so if we do this, we can say, please enter your age as a whole number. I don't know why somebody would say they're 12.5, but who knows. So I'm going to now run this real quick just to see that that works and to also save this and stuff like that. So got to save it. I'm going to come back over here, and in my case, I've got to put it back over here. And I'm going to call this one 16, just so I remember which one it was. All right. And when I do that, it pops up and says, hey, enter your age as a whole number. Well, 2 things come to mind here. I need to put something like this in a space to branch it out. Because when I run this, it's going to pop up, and when I'm going to type, it's going to be right on top of it. So I fixed that piece really quickly. All right, so now we can echo that output. So it says, the next step says, write the code to display the contents of each variable. I think what we're going to do is actually go through first, take all this data in, and then we'll echo it out to the student. So the next one we want to have is student GPA, there's input. So please enter your GPA as a decimal fraction. So now somebody put in their student GPA. We're not doing any tests for it to make sure. So you could put in 9.9. It's probably also odd we're just asking for your GPA and not calculating it, but such as that. And then last we'll get their name. So student All right. So now I have all 3 of those. I'm pretty sure they're going to work, but so now we need to display those outputs, and those are simply just print statements. So I'm going to print.
What's the name of the student name?
I just put in enter your first and last name unless you are a one-name singer. So Madonna, Prince, this guy. I'm just trying to add. All right. So I'm going to do a print statement. And I'm actually going to print their name out first. So, hi. Now, there's a couple of different ways we can do this. This particular set likes to use the concatenation. Probably I would use a comma if it were me, but it's okay. Whatever we're going to do here. So, hi, and then we're going to put in student name. So we're going to get their name. We're going to output that. And I think we'll just leave that as one statement to start with. Then I'm going to do another print statement. Plus GPA plus GPA. And that way it prints it out. I need to put a space in there. Another space there. And then lastly, we're going to print
Are you putting student name in asterisk? I can't see it.
oh, can you not see that? Do I need it bigger?
Yeah.
I do not. So those asterisks are only the items that you're actually going to print. Let me see if there's a way I can make that bigger. Where I have it in fonts. See if I get up to. Is that easier to see now? You're kind of in an odd spot there. So. No. That's. Let me make it even bigger. See if I can get it 22 or something. Oh. That makes it much bigger. Maybe that will be easier to see. Alright. So I see you have a student GPA. So no. So the question was, do I enclose the name of the variable in quotes? No. If I put this in quotes, it's just going to print the phrase student GPA. Alright. And so
Do you have an extra plus in there? After GPA?
after GPA, I'm adding this piece here onto it. So I'm taking the variable is here.
Oh, gotcha.
So I'm shoving these all together. So I see you have a, and then it's going to grab the variable, and then it's going to say GPA.
Yep, I gotcha.
All right. So the student age. Now, I will say I like doing this whole name simply because that to me looks a little better than in the book they're talking about ST name or whatever. The shorter the name, the better in terms of performance. And we don't want to, you can use 255 characters for a variable name. That would get ugly. But I also want it to be self-documented. So here, we do that. Alright, so now, it's kind of an odd thing to say, but I'm going to run this one. Alright, let's see what it outputs. I'm going to move that back over. Please enter your age as a whole number. Please enter your first name. So I see a couple of things I got to do. My prints work fine. What I didn't do is put in spaces on here again. Because that's what I was doing. And then I'm going to delete this. So it makes it a little easier to see. So just kind of clean that up a little bit. So now we come down here and it says, all right, write the code to determine the data type for age, name, and GPAs. Check that the type is correct. Okay, so we know that what we actually had earlier, when we put it in a print statement, we could do type, and then we open up that function. So we're really nesting two functions, and we could do type student age, and because I don't like to retype that much, here's what I'm going to do. And you'll see when we show you some other tools, there's even quicker ways to do this. But so now I have 3 of those types, so I'm just going to change them. GPA, name. And so now when I run it, it should tell me those different types. So class string, string, string. Oh, well, why does it list them all as strings? That's interesting. So anytime we do an input, and this, I have been known to forget this quite often, anytime we do an input into Python particularly, it comes in as a string. We have to then convert it to something if we want to use that as a numeric data. So, even though, if I look up here, I declared it and said, hey, it's got a 0 in it. As soon as we did this and we did an input into that, it converted it automatically over to a string. All right, so now we have a little bit of work to do if we need to figure that out. So we can configure the data types. All right. So we need to get some additional information. So here we say we're going to prompt the user for a city. That one's pretty easy. And I'm going to actually do this for now, because that showed you what we were doing, but it makes it a little ugly. So if I put a hashtag out in front of those statements aren't going to run. So we know that they're in as a string. So if we want to do something with that, we'll have to do a little manipulation. And I'll show you how to do that really quickly. All right. So the last one says create input prompts for parent's name, parent's age, get male, parent's name, age, and a yes/no variable. So in some languages, things like a yes/no, we actually have special variables called booleans, where we just store essentially a 0 or a 1, yes or no. Python doesn't do that, so in some ways it makes our life easier, but the flip side of that is we store a lot of data to get a yes or no answer. So the first thing is we're going to grab the favorite city. So student fav city is going to be equal to input. Please enter your favorite city. All right. That one's pretty easy to do. Nothing really strange there. So we can also do a couple of other things here. So it says we want variables for parent's name, parent's age, and get name. All right, we're going to change those up just a little bit for our use. So we're going to put in year equals input. Please enter the year. All right. So what we're going to do with this is I'm going to show you how we can change this a little bit so that we can utilize them for something else. These are pretty, bless you. So there are other things we can do. So we're getting the parent's name, parent's ages, and get name. That's the very similar things to what we did up here. We can concatenate them together. Now we're going to ask for the current year. Now, I will say we can pull it from other things. This just gets it very quickly, and a user can type that in. I'm going to actually convert then year into an integer. So I'm going to say year equals to an integer of year. So what that does, so because I typed in integer, it's going to convert over here. It's going to take that number we type in, and it's going to shove it into integer form and then shove it back in here. I don't have to change it to a separate variable to start with, so I can manipulate it on the right and shove it into the left really, really easily. So what we could do now is create a string, so I could say print like, now because my screen is kind of small, I'm going to do something else that we haven't really seen yet. So I'm going to use the character up here, so above your enter key, and I'm going to put an N in. And you're like, what is that going to do? And I'll show you. So it looks like N, you will graduate. I'll move this over so you can see it, because it's a little ugly. All right, you will graduate in plus, now I'm going to get year plus 4, and let's see if that works, because I could have also done it up here. I'll show you both ways here. All right, so now I'm going to run this really quickly, and we can see it. So all I've done is I've taken the input of a year, I've changed it into an integer, so hopefully it will work, and we'll take a look at that. So F5, yes, we're going to save it. All right, so bring my, enter your age as a whole number, 54, 3.2, you have a strange name there, Mike. Hi, Mike Omaha. I see you have 3.2 GPA. I hope you like being 42. Please enter your favorite city. Where's a favorite city somebody has? Please enter the current year, 2023. Oh. Can only concatenate string, not into string. Okay. So, we need to go back and look at our code real quick. So because we're inside this print statement, it doesn't like this, adding that there. So here's what I can do. There's a lot of ways I could do it. I could do it down inside there. I'm just showing you one possibility. So I like it because we can do this a little cleaner. You could do this by putting that in another set of quotes, but this should add that in up front, and then when you're only passing in a single variable.
So with it, if you were to put it on the print statement, you have to put 4 anticipators as put in an integer?
You would have to, because right now when it's doing that, it's looking at that 4, and it doesn't know what to do with it, because it says, hey, I've got a year, a variable, and I have this 4 here, and it's trying to not use addition like you're thinking about. It's trying to concatenate them or put them together like in a string series.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways we could also do that. So let me scroll down to the bottom of this guy now. There we go. So age is a whole number, decimal fraction. I'm just typing in some gibberish. Yeah, and it still doesn't like that. So, can only concatenate string, not integer, to string. Alright, so let's look at my code one more time really quickly and see if there's a way we can do that. So here we're using the plus symbol to concatenate. If I instead type a comma to break that up, let's see if that magically solves our issue. Alright, come over here and make it big. Those concatenations inside a print statement, we have to be a little careful. We can put variables in, but we can't add them quite the way that we'd like to. So, in this case, because we had it set up as an integer and not a string, that's what was causing it to hiccup there. So, a lot of different ways we can do that. If you really are stuck on, I want to use the concatenations with the plus symbols, you could then flip it back to, so you could come back in here, so we changed it and then say year equals str, and now you can do it that way. Because now you've converted it to an int, performed your operation on it, and then converted it back to a string. Just some of the things we can do with that. All right, so small. So we have our pieces here. So there are a couple of others. So you have to do parent's name, parent's age, and get mail. Here's the one tricky thing with it. Because we're using those possessives and have those single quote marks, don't use them in your code. So parent age. So instead of saying, hey, I've got all these things, what if we did, new windows again. So you would probably want a variable like parent age, no symbols on those. So anytime you try to use a symbol, it's going to cause you to have all kinds of, so parent age, and then you could get your parent's age and such and add all those stuff. This really is just showing how we can manipulate and start to work with strings. All right, so that should get you about 90% done on 1.6. So I'm going to jump then to, I suppose we could do the little quiz together. Let's go. All right. So there is this little 4-point quiz. We can look at it real quick. They're not. You can actually take these multiple times. The input function in Python returns user input as a string. Get that out again. There we go. All right, no access code. All right, so now if we preview it, input function always returns a string.
Yes.
Okay. What is an example of the proper use of the input function? So what's wrong with number 1? Well, at least in my version, number 1. Yours are probably all scrambled.
It's all capitals.
So doesn't like capitals, no. What's wrong with number 2? So mine says input and then enter your answer. So that phrase enter your answer is a string that you're going to pass into that function. It needs something in there. So in this case, once again we have all capital for inputs, so we know that one's not right. And if I look at this one, the third one on my example, it may be different. So input, and then it's got a quote mark over the string we're passing in. So I would say it's probably, in this case, this answer. Again, they're going to shuffle them for you. So a lot of times now we're going to start looking at small pieces of code. Here is what you can always do. If I am curious and I go, man, I just don't know what it's going to do, what can I possibly do really quickly?
Put it in tab.
So I can copy it. Now there's a couple caveats in there. So I'm going to do a new one here for it. So I can put this in here. A lot of times when I copy and paste, it changes the quotation marks. You got to be careful on that, especially if it's text that shows an open and a closed parenthesis, like something out of Word where they're angled differently. It's going to probably screw up in there. So you got to make sure you look and see what's going to happen. So now I'm going to run it. Yeah, because I just use that as a. And when I run it, enter your answer. So it's going to say, hey, I don't know what happens there because we're trying to add an integer plus a string, and that's not going to work. So what I would have to do to use this is I would have to convert that to an integer and then actually add those that way. So there's a little more work we have to do in that particular one. And again, down here then, if you entered 38, enter your magical answer. Print, you entered plus answer. What's it going to do? So does it look right? Yeah. So if we think it's going to work, then it's probably you entered 38. So we'll get it. All right. So 1.6 we've got out of the way. So as we go through these, I will probably adjust some of these different types of problems just to kind of see where we're going and where we're able to push you guys a little bit as students here. So
Do you maybe want to give us time to finish 1.7?
I can.